So tell us a little bit about you and about your role, please.
Well, thank you so much for reaching out to me. I think this is a great opportunity. I used to do a lot more of these, and so I'm excited to do another one. It's been a while, and I've had a pretty varied career that's not even updated on my LinkedIn over the past 2 years that I have a ton to add today. So I'm excited to be a part of this, and I too might need your services. I'm always, more so than ever, I'm looking to expand my career as well. So we might be doing some business.
There you go. Well, what is your what's your current role then, if you would, please?
So long time at Google, 15 years, progressed up through the company, mostly in sales. And by sales, it's more of a consulting role where we're working with chief marketing officers. And I've been in pretty much every industry you could imagine. So I came from Northwest Airlines as a senior marketing executive, and then started out in travel, moved to CPG, moved to retail, finance, healthcare, always as a leader in sales. So running a team of people that we spent a lot of time working with CMOs on their and CEOs on their business objectives. So true consulting where it's not just a one-trick pony sale. It's more about helping to transform how they sell or not, how they grow their business. So we're all about growth and literally growing their bottom line with a series of solutions from top of the funnel to bottom of the funnel. So it's always changing. It's always interesting. And so that's why I've been able to have such a great career inside of Google. The company is still growing. We're at like 180,000, soon to be 200,000. And there is growth happening at this company under every nook and cranny. We're a growth company. And just when you think, we could be tapped out, we're not, because there's always special projects happening that we're funding behind the scenes that we don't really talk about for a reason, because we're an experimental company. We spend a lot of time testing and iterating on things, and that mentality has definitely trickled down into all of us. We need to have that experimental mindset. For me, in the past 2 years, I am the what we call victim of a reorg. There's constantly reorgs at this company, and so you really have to have a thick skin. You have to be nimble and adaptable to make changes in your career, even when you are not ready to. So for me, I took a big risk a couple of years ago as, a senior leader, doing really well, created a brand new team structure, rolled that out, scaled that. So, thriving. But it was reorged, and the role moved to Chicago. I'm based in San Francisco. So I got that off the ground, but, I had to find something in San Francisco. So you look at your skill set and you see what's available, and there was no sales leadership role to just plop into. So I took a chief of staff role, which was, something that I went from the top of my game as a sales leader to a chief of staff in cloud. So I knew nothing about cloud, knew nothing about being a chief of staff, had never been one. And I moved into the marketing organization working with the CMO of cloud. That was one of the selling points. I had worked with CMOs externally before, but now getting a chance to work with my customer, but like hand in hand, and helping her to run her business of 550 people globally was just an opportunity I couldn't pass up. But you need thick skin to jump off a cliff and hope this new opportunity works for you. So that was interesting. And then a victim of another reorg. And so have been doing a series of projects while I find my next role. And so basically, long story short, the reorg has forced me to really go above and beyond what I ever thought I was capable of, which has completely transformed my resume. I interview completely different now than I did 6 months ago, even a year ago. And so what's great about this company is that, well, one, you need to kind of create your own destiny. So you need to be very self-sufficient and entrepreneurial in your own career, but Google supports you in being able to move around horizontally. So at the beginning of my career, I climbed fast, and now I've taken a lot of time to be horizontal. And I think that that's one thing I would give advice to those coming in or those in their careers, that it's not always up. It's up and over, it's over and up, it's horizontal, it's vertical, it's diagonal.
I remember one of my bosses once telling me years ago, sometimes you have to bang a Yui to go ahead.
I like that. Boy, have I taken a lot of Yuis.
So, it's unavoidable that when we talk about your career history, that we get into transferable skills.
Mm-hmm.
We help our clients, for the most part, find jobs in what we call the unpublished market. So opportunities that have never been published because they're so new, right? And a really key feature there is that you're able to identify your transferable skills and articulate them. And I suspect you've been doing rather a lot of that recently.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your experience in discovering your transferable skills and then communicating them.
That's great. Thanks. So I'll talk a little bit about hard skills, soft skills. So, hard skills can be learned, but hard skills can only be learned if you have certain soft skills. And so for me, the soft skills that I feel I was born with or have adapted over time, well, one, I'm a natural born introvert. And so that being and flexing into extroversion is something that I've learned to do really well, and therefore always prepare, show up well, and really create connections across the board. So like deep connections. So that's one thing. The other pieces are around resiliency, tenacity, never, ever, 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 ever give up, ever is kind of another one. And where you start every day, no matter how much you're beaten down the day before, and the stakes are high and the pressure's high, and you had 20 meetings, and when are you going to get your work done? And it's all too much. Having the ability to wake up the next day and say, hey, I'm pretty lucky, I'm grateful, and I want to attack this again. So I think those are some of the softer skills you have to have. Another one is sense of urgency, where you're able to move fast, quickly change on a dime, and know that change is inevitable. So if looking at some of those soft skills, then you can get into those harder skills that you need to do the job at hand. So I've done from the chief of staff role, having never been a chief of staff, but having been a Googler for a long period of time, I was able to come in and help create a culture that didn't necessarily exist inside of cloud, based on how I like to connect with people, how I feel the googly traits of respect each other, lift each other, and drive amazing work. So all of that existed in the Google side of the house, and cloud is so new. So how can I come over and help transform that organization in organizational development when I've never done that at scale? So working with the CEO and the VP of HR, now I can walk away from that with people operation skills and culture transformational skills that I didn't have 6 months prior. And so it's the ability to, in my soft skills, to never give up, to try new things, to put yourself out there, that I've been able to gain some of those harder skills now in strategy and ops, people, and also, a CMO, being able to live and breathe inside of her head and help run her organization. So I'm not saying I'm going to run out and be a CMO someday, but, I definitely now have these skills that I didn't have prior. Well, so it's attitude, great attitude of gratitude. I'm happy to be here, even though I went from the top of my game, like every 6 months, top of my game, to to the bottom, where I feel like an imposter. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how much longer, I can do this, because type A personalities want to be at the top of their game all the time. And so being down here is frustrating, but I'm hardest on myself. But the ability to want to, or the desire to want to keep achieving and be the best, I think is what keeps me going. And therefore those skills are transferable no matter where you go. Google is very much a jack of all trades organization. They hire for generalists because of reorgs and because of, they put the jobs where the need is. And if you don't have several skills and a horizontal approach for the past couple of years, you are not going to move from a role where you've been in for 10 years. Because I've seen this. A lot of my peers have been in the same role for 10 years. I'm like, how do you do that? So once you have more varied skills, then you become more marketable inside of this company.
But you remind me that, one of my most extreme experiences was I was in the amusement park business. I was actually responsible for marketing for an association, the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions. So my job was to go to all of these events and parks and bring more people in. And it was a great job. I loved it. I traveled all over the world. My next job was the privatization of a North Moravian chicken combinat to manufacture mayonnaise. So
that's different.
And I have to say, my principle has always been never take a job that you're competent for because you don't learn anything. So I suspect you have a similar perspective.
Oh boy, yes. So, for better or for worse.
Yeah. Now tell me a little bit, how has, we've all suffered a little bit under this COVID-19, some more, some less. I know Google's doing quite well. How has it generally affected your industry, or if you can, your company, or even yourself?
Yeah, great. I've got a dog down here, working from home challenges. We have to just embrace it. So for the company, gosh, at the beginning, it was like, so much of our sales and our revenue comes in from big industries like travel and retail. And that's how we fund other parts of the business, like cloud, which is doing, pretty darn good from our last earnings. So it's kind of like, where are we going to pick up the gap? And travel was kind of a wash. But where we were hoping and where we've always been going in this company as a digital first company is e-com. So obviously Amazon is the big behemoth there, with a couple other companies stealing share like Walmart. But we've always been on the path to help companies go more digital and enable their storefront now to be their website. And so that required a lot of work up front to help them have the capabilities to have e-commerce, working with them transformationally inside of their organization and what that looks like, how to staff, how to organize, how to break down silos to enable that all to work. So we've been pleasantly surprised with how companies have been able to adapt and working and partnering with us and, kind of listening to us when it comes to where the future is going, and that e-commerce, you might have thought it was here already, but it's definitely here now. And companies have had to adapt to that in order to survive. And so I think that that's one great change that's come out of this, the silver linings. I don't mean like anything's great from COVID. And then, in terms of the workforce, Google for the past 5+ years have been wired for a work from home environment. They offer a lot of flexibility in where we work. They put a lot of emphasis on taking care of us. And if we need to stay home for a week, at any given point in time for care leave or for, mental health week or, whatever it is we need to do, Google is a tech company. And so we're enabled with great tech to enable Google video conferencing and having everything just on our computer. There's no paper. There's no need for in-person meetings. But what has happened is that challenge that happens where you can't just run into somebody, a nice happenstance in the hallway. You can't grab somebody for 15 minutes and chat about something. You have to set up time on the video conference, and that makes your day completely full of half-an-hour meetings. Sometimes hour meetings, but we've tried to move away from hour meetings. Mm-hmm. And so your day is completely booked. And when do you get your work done? When do you prepare for tomorrow? When do you do the follow-ups? Also, when do you do your work? And so oftentimes that means long evenings, it means some weekends, all of which some people are happy to do. I don't have a family, and so that works for me. But a lot of people have a lot of life going on, and that's just not going to work. So there's burnout. Absolutely. There was burnout already by going to work. There's burnout now because of meetings. And so a couple things that Google has done, in my vertical right now, I'm in the telecom vertical, we've implemented a commitment to each other on meeting cadence. We end at 25 minutes after. We make sure there's only 10 people on every meeting. If there's more, then something needs to change. There's always got to be an agenda that goes up before. No meetings on Friday, no meetings before 9, no meetings after 5. So a lot of great things that the company has done to take care of us. And then in addition to that, as you think about where this is going, and that might be your next question, in terms of, is this going to be a growth generator? Could this possibly, stagnate some of what we're looking to do as a company? And I think there's growth because it offers more flexibility. So perhaps before my employment opportunities may have only existed in California. Now, if we are not going back to work until sometime in August, that's been publicly stated. And again, what does it look like after? Is it once per week that we go into the office? That now allows me to consider opportunities in Chicago or New York and have more flexibility there. Without a commute, that opens up more time to either spend with your family or work. Honestly, that's what I do with my hour and a half that I have gotten back. And I'm looking at one more thing. You honestly, you can meet with so many more people in a day if that's what you want to do, which is oftentimes what I have to do as I'm working across many stakeholders nationally. You have more time to meet with people. So I think that's really, I think we're primed at Google for growth due to the way the company treats or helps its employees survive in this world, with lots of extra care in mental health and counseling and video doctor's appointments. And they give us some resources to help make our work from home environment fantastic, with posture and chairs and standing desks and whatever it takes. They're taking good care of us.
That's excellent. Well, we've been virtual since 2017. When we started, we just said, no, we're virtual, and forgive us, we use Zoom, but we'll also use Google. Don't worry.
No, that's maybe Google is telling me something by not being able to have my Zoom work properly. Possibly, I don't know.
Possibly. But you mentioned doctor's visits. I don't know if you've seen it, but I interviewed recently Chris Gauda from Mayo Clinic, who's their chief public relations officer, and he was talking about how the way healthcare will be delivered, at least from his perspective, is that there'll be an awful lot more upfront virtual visits,
finally,
maintenance, and that sort of thing. And the actual, in-person care will be much minimized, and therefore it would be more efficient. They can handle more people. Possibly costs will even go down. I don't know about that, but so the economist is always saying that this is really just accelerating the underlying trends that were already there.
Yes.
I think that's what you're saying, that productivity gains on the one hand, but also some losses too. The social aspect of the water cooler and all that, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm saying amen to all of this. I've been dying for virtual visits with a doctor for 10 years. Mm-hmm. Like, wouldn't it be great if I could just talk to him on the phone before video conferencing? And COVID has forced all restaurants to be outside now, which is al fresco dining is the best. So there's a lot of areas where COVID has pushed or catalyzed where we've been going. And to me, it's definitely for the better.
Well, and we also see the boom in Zoom, in virtual meetings of all kinds. So
yes.
Microsoft and everyone else, Google, you've all benefited from that, I'm sure. And you see how remote learning has taken off as an industry. So there are so many positive sides to this horrible
Right.
situation. Now, let's imagine that people hearing your story would like to join Google
Hmm.
or join a company like Google. Often they come from other industries. They have different backgrounds. What thoughts, advice would you have for the kinds of skills that you think might be valuable in a company like yours or one of your competitors? Um, I'll give you one example, please, if I might, and that is, again, quoting Chris Gatta from Mayo Clinic. He said, we have enough data. We don't have insights. We need people who can come and help us winnow through that data to actually understand what it means. And those people are not going to come from healthcare. They're going to come from other industries with business backgrounds and data analytics and that sort of thing. So back to you, please. What kinds of skills could you imagine will be valuable to your company and your industry going forward?
Yeah, I think you led into what I will comment on very nicely. It is so different from when I started at this company where all they really wanted was, I was very valuable because of my travel expertise. And I went to help the travel vertical grow our business with airlines. And so that was perfect fit. It's different now because a lot of the roles, there's less and less sales roles and more cloud roles, technical roles, data roles, engineering roles. It's very different. And so I say when you come in, yeah, it's great to have, an industry background. But like you said, for the Mayo Clinic, is that you don't necessarily have to be in healthcare in order to have those transferable skills of where the company is right now and where it's going. So I would say my advice, there's, you said it, is that this technical, analytical skill set is super important. And that's where those people that graduated in finance and data analysis and technical roles will do really well at this company, more so than ever before. Of course, we're an engineering company, first and foremost. We're, a sales company way down the line. We've got product, we've got, I'm not important at this company. I like to think that I am, because we're bringing in a lot of the money to support all the rest of the company. But therefore, you need those technical program management skills. I think that that's another one that we've seen here that works really well in some of the roles that I'm seeing. The other that I'll just mention briefly, consulting roles. Those, go-to-market type of roles that are support roles for senior leaders and driving their business, I think is really important. Back in the day, we didn't see any chief of staff roles, and all of a sudden there's need for those types of roles as you grow your business, as you become larger, global in scope. The senior leader can't do it all on their own. They need to build up their office of the chief a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've seen that as a thing. And then finally, entrepreneurial, willing to take risks, have shown risk taking in the past. That's a big one for us. It's big in our some of our bigger bets of super secret projects that I don't even know about. They're constantly taking risks, and that's the philosophy. And like, if you're not breaking it, you're not succeeding. You got to keep going until you break it, because that's when the limit, and that trickles down into how we have to behave. We're rewarded for taking risks, calculated risks, and then what do we learn from it, and then how do we scale? Like, there's a formula. So I say having that entrepreneurial spirit and having shown some of that in your past and how you've done something, changed it, and then scaled it, I think is important. And that could be in any industry, any level. And okay, so I'll add one more. Thinking like a business owner. So having P&L experience, having true business ownership over something. If you're looking to be, not start out at some sort of entry level here at Google, but be more in the executive suite, that over time, business development, business growth, transformational change inside of the organization, I think is something that we look for. So as you see, I mentioned some soft skills and also some hard skills. when it comes to what this company is valuing right now and what it might not have valued as much a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. I'm talking to a psychologist, and I'll be publishing that as well, who talks a lot about managing stress, because obviously there's plenty of stress going around right now. And she's got some interesting, I guess, clinical might be over the top, but practical approaches, one of which is sort of an analytical understanding your sources of stress and essentially changing your response to them by observing them, right? So I think that's interesting. I think she calls it cognitive behavior therapy. And the other one is a narrative, where we tell ourselves stories all the time in our minds, in the quiet of our own voice. And sometimes those are historically grounded and not necessarily accurate, right? So the practice of understanding your narrative and changing your narrative, I suspect that you're using those, just listening to you and all of the roles you've had and all of the things that you've been through. How do you handle stress on the job?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be a little bit vulnerable right now. I'm like high wired, I lead with some red energy, directive energy, and it's like kind of go, 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 go. They call me the Energizer Bunny, and I'll take that, for what it's worth as a compliment, I suppose. But, tend to never slow down, take a breath, have time to do something which I've always loved to do, which is read. But now I find myself going so much in my brain that I can't, I don't get the enjoyment out of it. I don't have the mind space that I used to. And I'm like, oh, that's a wake up call, right? Mm-hmm. And so, Google is very good at giving us the tools that we need. Now, whether we use them or not is another, if I have time to use them or not is another thing, but constantly talking about mindfulness and quick tips here and there on how to take 5 minutes out of your day, because it actually is proven, data beats opinion. It's actually proven to help you perform better in your next meeting. Mm-hmm. So helping you to think about those things, overcome those trainings or meditation courses. There's mental health week. We get all those tools. However, you have to use them. And so for me, how I've been able to handle stress, my run every day is super important. I need to get outside. I need to take a run, because for me, it does two things. It, keeps the weight down so I can eat some food if I'm stressed. And two, it literally transforms the endorphins transforms the way I think. And in a task, in constant meetings and you feel like you're just a taskmaster. That's very, I forget if it's front of the brain or back of the brain. But when you run, you're in this, or alpha brain or beta brain. But when you run, when you're in the shower and right before you fall asleep is when your brain turns from task to thinking, and you unlock creative mindset. And that's proven. There's a course here at Google called Magic Academy. So we take a full week course to tap into that part of our brain. And so for me, forcing myself, because I was told data works, data, is the reason that, it's proven, to then force myself to every day stick to my run, because it transforms the way I think. And this role is very cerebral. I'm not rewarded by completing my tasks. I'm rewarded by creative problem solving, thinking outside of the box, experimenting, testing, and scaling. Like all of that requires the think space that you need. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I get stressed out when I don't have enough think time.
Right. And the running gives you that.
Definitely.
That's great. That's wonderful. So you've shared copiously, and we're about out of time here. Is there any last element of your background that you might like to share that you think people would benefit from knowing more about as they approach their changes?
I'm thinking, let's see if there's anything else we haven't covered. It's been a great interview.
Tell me about wine tasting. How does wine tasting fit into all of that?
You see I just light up. I light up. I know, when I've worked with cognitive behavioral therapists, which doesn't mean I have a problem. It means, everybody can benefit from this. They have that at Google as well, offer it for free, which definitely helps with, how you show up as a leader. just for fun, I took, I wanted to take a wine course. This is back in 2009 when I was in Chicago. And what I didn't know is I ended up signing up for a course, like a year-long course to be a sommelier. And I didn't really realize that until the first, 4-hour session in, which is every like Tuesday night or something. And I'm surrounded by wine people at restaurants, servers, people really into wine. I knew nothing about wine. So here I am, sniffing the wine and saying like, oh, I smell walnut. And the instructor's like, no, no,
No, you
you
don't.
don't. And so I got forever the name Walnut. But it was like, okay, I caught the bug. I am an imposter here. I don't know what I'm doing, but damn it, I'm bound and determined now to own this because I love it so much. I caught the bug. It's not even like I drank that much wine. I didn't really care, but I could own this, and I love being in food and wine. And so I did that, but did nothing with it because I was working at Google, and I knew eventually I wanted to move out to California. But I went east. You have to go east to go west. I moved from Chicago, then to Paris and Switzerland for a year, working on the Nestle business, and then moved back to Chicago, then moved to New York for an interesting role, then moved back to Chicago for another interesting role, then moved out to California finally 5 years ago because I was like, just give me any role out there. I just want to be in wine. And so I immediately got a role in the wine country in helping to run the winery, help make the wine, harvest the wine, grow the wine, run the winery, or run the tasting room. And so like I was in my element. I got to do exactly what I've always wanted to do. And so that was every weekend. So I worked 7 days a week for like 3 years. I've since quit that role because my job now requires just too much, and it's oftentimes working on the weekends to catch up or get ahead. But I'm not saying that's what people should do. It just kind of works for me. But I definitely, I'm calling that I called it my 10-year plan 4 years ago. So I'm still calling it my 6-year, maybe 8-year plan, where let's do this Google thing. Let's do tech. Let's, make a great career for yourself, make the money because you don't make very much money up in wine country, but
Right.
That's where my passion is. I want to be a general manager of a winery someday. I think
There you
that would
go.
be, or marketing, because I've, done that forever. So that's my next, well, not next, but soon to be career move.
Very good. And by all means, let's stay in touch. Perhaps we'll talk again in a couple of months and see where you
Yes.
are. You're probably in 12 other roles by then.
Probably. Gosh, I'm just looking for now just that one role, at a certain level at Google that becomes few and far between. And I'm not an engineer. I'm not a super technical person. And so right now I look at the opportunities, and there's, not a lot. And also Google has publicly stated that they're in a little bit of a freeze. COVID has changed some of that for us. And so we'll see what happens.
Economics are great, but there's this little hole in your soul that you also need to address, I'm sure, if you're like the rest of us. So.
Yes, exactly.
All right, Addie. Well, thank you so much. And do send it over when you get a chance, and great success to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Peter. This was fun.
Nice to meet you. Take care.
Nice to meet you.
Stay
Bye.
healthy. Bye.
Thank you. You too.